Now, I want to open up the floor for a couple minutes for any questions that anybody may have or any feedback that you have. Because for some, this may be kind of different in terms of, especially the stuff about coming across the Atlantic before Columbus. I got a book, too. Okay, so if you want the sources, you really want to get into the sources, everything is documented inside of the book that we have in the back. But I want to open up the floor for questions. So please feel free to ask any question that's on your mind. Floor is open. Yes, sir.
You did mention Muslims who were brought over as slaves from Africa.
Yeah.
I was familiar with Brazil, who actually led slave revolts.
Yeah.
Can you maybe expand on that?
Yeah, that is another area, and really, it's a very important area too. Tonight we were focusing on the legacy in Muslim Spain. So I didn't go into that area, but actually in the Bahia section in Brazil, there's a number of documents and traces, and some of the people are still there today, of Muslims who are coming especially from what is now known as Nigeria, Hausa and Fulani. And they were taken down in large numbers by the Portuguese, and there were a series of revolts. And many of them revolted so vigorously that they were actually allowed to go back. And you can find now in Lagos, in Nigeria, there are mosques, houses of worship of Muslims, that are built by Brazilian Muslims. And you can go say, that's the Brazilian mosque, that's what they say. These are people who were captured, taken to Brazil, and returned. Now, what is interesting is to see how a religion changes, you know, as time goes by and when people lose contact with the source of the religion. And what is happening now, and that's one of the places I want to visit myself, but what is happening now is that the people are starting to get reintroduced to the religion again. But I read one article sometime in the past where the only thing that was left for some of the people in Bahia for their prayers was that women would stand in a circle and they clap their hands. And the man, you know, dances a type of jig. And he says, you know, something which in a broken Mande language, mixed with Portuguese, says, La ilaha illallah, which means there's no God but Allah. So he's saying this. And that's the only thing left of their prayer. So the study of Bahia section of Brazil is a very important study. And there are a few works done in Portuguese. There's a certain, I don't have it right here, but there's some works being done. Now, are you familiar with the works done? Right, right. So I saw some of the work that he did. And it's a very interesting, actually they have Arabic documents too. I saw some of the Arabic documents they had from that area. Well, actually, all over the Caribbean, there's documentation coming now. What we're finding is about 30% of the slaves were Muslims, coming from the Guinea coast of West Africa. And what I found, and I've got some of it in my research in the back there, like for instance in Jamaica, in 1821 there was a document being passed around in Arabic, a wathiqa, and they had a big revolt in the Manchester section of Jamaica. In Suriname, there was Muslims leading the revolt. Toussaint Louverture, one of his generals was called Macandal. He was an imam. I went to Bahamas, and they had these documents. They told me it was Amharic, it was Ethiopian. But when I went in there, it was Arabic. And the man, he wrote, you know, like surahs is chapters of the Quran that we're familiar with when you're seeking refuge in God from evil. He wrote Nas, Falaq, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Ayatul Kursi, you know, Isti'adha min ash-shaytan. That's what he was trying to do. And they said it's Amharic, because they didn't know that it was Arabic. And so there's a series of things coming. Also the names of people. Because of the attitude that the early Portuguese and Spanish had coming in, they were so paranoid of Muslims because of the war they were fighting, that they would not use the name Muslim when they described somebody who was a slave. So you won't find the name Muslim being used. See, and this is what threw people off for a long time, because you didn't see a name. But now we're reinvestigating the names. And you find names like Bubakar or Buka, which actually is Abu Bakr. You find like Wali. You find a lot of West African names, Jalo and Kaaba. And these are very well-known Muslim names. And you can actually trace the ports on the Guinea coast of West Africa where they were taken. This is how the percentages are now being reanalyzed in terms of knowing the percentage of Muslims who came, is a large percentage actually. The Maroons in Jamaica, in the Maroon territory, there's a Quran up there. So the Maroons, who were originally they call cimarrones, like wild horses, because they escaped from the Spanish, they were fighting the Spanish. They were a conglomeration of different tribes. So anybody who would escape, you go to Maroon territory. But the Muslims were one of the powerful groups. Wolof, Mandinka, Hausa, Fulani. They were one of the groups, powerful groups who were resisting the slavery. So there's slave revolts. And in America, there's a book called African Muslims in Antebellum America. It's by a man named Alan Austin. And you can get the name of it back there in my book. He actually brings the primary documentation for a lot of places, even for the United States. And so there's a series of people, there's a book called The Fortunate Slave, another one by Philip Curtin called Africa Remembered. And these books trace Muslim slaves in the United States. Actually, just recently, there was one slave, his name was Umar bin Said. I think it's South Carolina. And it actually had handwritten Arabic letters and documentation. It was sold in New York City. And there's a library now going to be in Detroit. They bought it in Detroit. And they're going to have it on display soon. It's Arabic handwritten document by Umar bin Said. And so there's a number of things, works like this that you will find. Okay? Yes, sir. Yeah, okay. Do you have that?
Okay, if somebody wants to write a question on a piece of paper, we have a brother that's going to collect, some of the brothers and a sister, Sadaf will collect them from the sister.